Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Daniel Langlois was born in 1957 and raised near Quebec, Canada. In 1986, he started his own 3D animation company called Soft Image. Technology developed by this company contributed substantially to the movie industry. It was used to produce effects in Jurassic Park, the Star Wars prequels, Titanic, and Men in Black. In 1994, Daniel sold the company to Microsoft for $200 million. By this time, he had become romantically involved with one of his employees named Dominique Marchand. They donated money to various charities, including those supporting the film industry. In the late 1990s, the couple moved to the Caribbean island of Dominica and purchased an old 285-acre plantation called Colubri Ridge. The island nation of Dominica is about 291 square miles, which is just a little smaller than New York City. It was under British control for many years, but gained independence in 1978. The country has about 72,000 residents who are plagued by a corrupt government. The economy is based on agriculture, tourism from cruise ships, and the sale of citizenship. Purchasing irrevocable citizenship is performed through the Citizen by Investment program. A person can buy citizenship for about $108,000 or by investing about $233,000 in real estate. There are no requirements like residency, but a person cannot be disabled or have a criminal record. This is a lucrative business for Dominica and represents 55% of the national income. Daniel and Dominique did not appear to be too worried about the corrupt government. They started building a 14-suite self-sustainable resort on the island. Their plan was to have visitors pay a minimum of $700 a night for an eco-friendly experience. The couple was extremely generous and donated a lot of money to Dominica. For example, after a hurricane slammed into the island in 2017, the couple spent $1 million to rebuild a school. They also contributed money to a stray dog and cat rescue program, a marine reserve, and infrastructure programs like a jetty. The locals really liked Daniel and Dominique, but in 2011, another couple moved to the island who would not enjoy the same level of popularity. Jonathan Lehrer and his wife Victoria purchased a chocolate plantation called Bois Côtelette, which was next to Colubri Ridge. Jonathan was raised in Short Hills, New Jersey, and was from a well-off family. He went to college and became an options trader. He made millions of dollars in his early 20s and graduated from college in 1988. He landed in debt to the tune of $200,000 after buying aircraft, sports cars, and motorcycles. It was almost like he was too impatient to have a midlife crisis. He wanted an early life crisis. Eventually, however, Jonathan turned things around by working for MetLife, where he became a vice president. This is where he met Victoria. They married and had 4 children. On a business trip to Dominica, Jonathan noticed the chocolate plantation and decided to purchase it. Jonathan and Victoria produced chocolate on the plantation, but this effort was just to entertain tourists. The couple ran bus tours for cruise ship passengers. This is how they really made money. At first, Daniel and Jonathan appeared to be at peace with one another. They didn't really communicate that much, but there was no hostility between them. This would change in 2014 when the men started arguing over the use of a small access road which passed through both properties. It was called Morne Rouge Road. In reality, it was not much of a road at all. In some places, it was really no more than 2 strips of gravel. The road had been public for hundreds of years, but now Jonathan believed it was his private road. From his point of view, the road belonged to him because the government was not maintaining it. Jonathan claimed the road could not withstand the tour buses and other heavy vehicles which were making their way to Daniel's plantation. To remedy this problem, Jonathan obtained permission to build two roads to divert people around his plantation. Both roads were opened in 2018. Daniel was not satisfied with this solution and demanded continued access to Morne Rouge Road. He became furious after Jonathan allegedly blocked the road with metal pipes, boulders, equipment, and supplies. After a prolonged legal battle, Daniel prevailed in 2019 when a judge granted an injunction keeping the road public. According to some locals, Jonathan and Victoria did not react well to this defeat. They were hostile and yelled at people, saying, "You're on our road." Allegedly, they used dogs to chase people away. On the website TripAdvisor, several cruise ship passengers made complaints about being chased off the Bois Côtelet plantation by angry and intimidating workers. A user named Jonathan L., presumably Jonathan Lehrer, responded to many of these complaints on behalf of the plantation. His responses were rambling and worrisome. He defended the actions of his workers and accused the cruise ship passengers of trespassing. Again, they had been walking on a public road. Residents of the island captured Victoria on camera screaming at a man who was trying to use the road. She was screaming something about how it was after 5 o'clock, as if that made some difference in the road's public status. Locals warned the police that the feud over the road was getting out of control, but no action was taken by the authorities. In October 2022, Daniel's eco-friendly resort had its grand opening. Now the road at the center of the dispute would be used regularly by visitors to the resort. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 1, 2023, people who knew Daniel and Dominique noticed they were missing. Their vehicle was not in the driveway where it was usually parked, and no one had heard from them. Eventually, someone noticed a burned-out vehicle not far from the couple's plantation. It had been pushed over a small cliff on a narrow road. When the police responded to the scene, they found 2 bodies in the vehicle which had been shot, but the bodies could not be identified due to fire damage. The murders had occurred the day before. Investigators presumed the bodies belonged to Daniel and Dominique. On December 4, 3 days after the discovery of the bodies, the police arrested Jonathan and a mechanic who worked for him named Robert Snyder. Robert was from St. Petersburg, Florida, and had been hired by Jonathan to fix tour buses. The police also arrested Victoria and a man named Norville Williams, who worked on the plantation. They were both released without being charged with any crime. During her 4-day stay in jail, Victoria complained that she was only given Kool-Aid and crackers. Victoria moved to Texas with her children and hired a PR firm to defend Jonathan. I guess now she wants everyone else to drink the Kool-Aid. Just like Victoria, Norville Williams decided to leave Dominica. On December 6, 2023, Jonathan and Robert were charged with 2 counts of murder. Both men claimed they were not guilty. The trial is scheduled for September 2024. If the men are convicted, they face death by hanging. In May 2024, the government of Dominica declared Morne Rouge Road to be public. This compounded Jonathan's problems. Not only is he facing execution, but people will be driving and walking on the road he treasured. At this rate, Jonathan will have nothing left to hang his hat on. Now moving to my analysis. Jonathan maintains his innocence. As I mentioned, his wife hired a PR firm for damage control on Jonathan's behalf. Jonathan's supporters have invoked conspiracy theories and blamed corruption for his predicament. They argue that the government of Dominica is plotting against him. The government disagrees. They argue that the evidence against Jonathan is overwhelming. This brings me to the question, was Jonathan guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Jonathan had a reputation on the island as being antagonistic, aggressive, unreasonable, petty, and vindictive. He allegedly compared himself to Daniel, saying things like, "I am the richest man on the island. It's not Daniel." The men had a long legal dispute involving a road that was clearly public. Jonathan knew that trying to seize the road was illogical, yet he persisted. The court determined that Jonathan was deliberately trying to hurt Daniel's business. Several locals said that Jonathan intimidated people who were using the road. Sometimes he even used dogs. On one occasion, he argued with a local man who picked an apricot off a tree. A former tutor of Jonathan's children called him controlling and difficult. Another former worker said that Jonathan was strict, didn't give workers enough breaks, and mistreated his dogs. Murders are rare on the island, and nobody except Jonathan had a motive to kill Daniel and Dominique. The couple was loved by the locals. On November 30, 2023, the day of the murders, a German tourist was visiting the island for yoga and freediving. The tourist said that he wandered onto Jonathan's property trying to get to Daniel's property. He was confronted by Norville Williams and subjected to an expletive-filled tirade, which included phrases like, "Hey, you blanker," and "blank off." The tourist turned around and walked away. After traveling about 160 feet, he heard gunshots. He continued walking until he encountered a second man, Robert Snyder. Robert told him this was private property. As the tourist was walking back to the village he came from, he heard 2 explosions and saw black smoke. This is near where the burned-out vehicle was found the next day. The timing of Robert's visit to the island was suspicious. He had only arrived 2 weeks before the murders. The police noticed that Robert had burns on his arms and legs. The tourist said that when he encountered Robert, there were no burns. In addition to this evidence, the police claim they have recovered a firearm, a bullet, and a spent cartridge case. They have hinted there might be another witness as well. Moving to the exculpatory factors, based on what has been released so far, there were no witnesses to the murder, no video, no physical evidence ties Jonathan to the crime. The case against Robert seems pretty strong, but maybe he acted on his own. The bodies of the murder victims could not be identified. Maybe Daniel and Dominique staged their own deaths to frame Jonathan. This was their ultimate and highly creative revenge against the man who fought them for years about a road. As I mentioned, Dominique sells citizenship to investors under a shady program, and officials have been accused of corruption. Jonathan was just one of 8 agents authorized to make these deals. Maybe the government framed him because they were unhappy with his sales performance. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe Jonathan is guilty of murder? If the government can produce the evidence they claim to have, then yes, I believe he is guilty. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Jonathan was self-centered, impulsive, grandiose, antagonistic, aggressive, vindictive, immature, petty, paranoid, cold, callous, and had a sense of entitlement. He was a prepper, that is, a person who vigorously prepares for the apocalypse. Jonathan advertised his plantation to other people interested in the prepper movement. For a fee, people could live on his plantation for a while during times of economic instability. This probably didn't pay the bills because there was no apocalypse, so Jonathan had to attract cruise ship passengers to make a living. His defensive and hostile attitude was incompatible with running this type of business. He frequently offended people by accusing them of trespassing. This earned him negative reviews on a travel website. Jonathan wanted to have complete control over his plantation and became aggravated because Daniel was using Morne Rouge Road. He thought that he could drive Daniel away, but Daniel wasn't going anywhere. Jonathan underestimated Daniel's level of determination, just like the characters in Jurassic Park underestimated the dangerousness of dinosaurs. Desperate to eliminate his problem, Jonathan recruited Robert to kill his rivals. Considering his status as a citizenship salesman, Jonathan probably thought the corrupt government would never turn on him. Like he was thinking to himself, they will never leave me hanging. As it turns out, both literally and figuratively, that's exactly what may happen. Those are my thoughts in the case of Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.